In the rugged expanses of the 19th century American West, the enigmatic figure of John Joel Glanton casts a long shadow over the records of outlaw legend. Born into adversity in South Carolina in 1819, Glanton's early years were marred by tragedy and turmoil, laying the foundation for a life marked by audacious exploits and bloody notoriety. From his storied tenure as a Texas Ranger during the Mexican-American War, to his descent into brutality as the leader of the infamous Glanton Gang, his saga reverberates through the corridors of history. Notably, Glanton's exploits served as a profound influence on the acclaimed novel Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, where his character and the exploits of his gang are vividly reimagined, shaping the dark and haunting narrative that has captivated readers for generations. Join us as we embark on a journey into the rise and fall of the notorious Glanton Gang, tracing their path from the blood-soaked battlefields of Mexico to the lawless expanse of the Arizona Territory, and uncovering the indelible imprint they left on the landscape of American literature. John Joel Glanton, born alongside his twin Julian in Edgefield County, South Carolina in the year 1819, was thrust into a life marked by adversity from his earliest days. The untimely demise of his father, Charles William Glanton, left a void in his upbringing, compelling his mother, Margaret Hill Glanton, to seek a fresh start with her 4 sons in the expanses of Louisiana. It was here, amidst the rugged landscapes of the Arkansas Territory, that Margaret remarried Major John Roddy, a veteran of the War of 1812, with whom she bore 2 additional children. Their family roots deepened as they established Walnut Woods, a sprawling plantation adorned with more than 20 enslaved individuals, nestled near what would eventually become Augusta. Though shrouded in the mists of time, Glanton's youth bore witness to a stormy spirit, renowned for its propensity towards explosive violence. While historical accounts offer scant insights into his formative years, the annals of his life reveal a journey fraught with peril and punctuated by tales of daring exploits. Rumors swirl of his involvement in the tumultuous events of the Texan Revolution, where he purportedly took up arms alongside Stephen F. Austin, engaging in the fierce clashes against Mexico's Centralist Republic. Tragedy struck close to home as his betrothed fell victim to abduction and savagery at the hands of Lipan Apaches, casting a shadow over his tenure at the siege of De Costa's forces in San Antonio. Tales of his gallantry as a scout under Colonel James Fannin, his commission as a captain of the Texas Rangers at the tender age of 16, and his miraculous escape from the bloodbath of De La Portilla's massacre at Goliad echo through the annals of history. Following the decisive victory at the Battle of San Jacinto, whispers were swirling of President Sam Houston's purported decree banishing Glanton from the Lone Star State, although the veracity of such claims remains a subject of speculation. His subsequent exploits are cloaked in ambiguity, with tales emerging of his involvement in the Regulator-Moderator War, where he was rumored to have left a trail of carnage in his wake, indifferent to the factions embroiled in conflict. The shadowy figure of Glanton emerges once more in the tales of justice, as records recount his brush with the law in New Orleans in 1841, where he faced charges of assault after a brazen attempt to discharge his pistol at a police officer within the confines of the American theater. Despite the gravity of the accusation, Glanton emerged unscathed, evading substantial repercussions due to the absence of any casualties. As the winds of fate continued to buffet him, Glanton sought solace in the Arkansas Territory, where he endeavored to carve out a semblance of stability through the acquisition of land. Though his efforts bore fruit, he eventually relinquished his claim and departed for the familiar shores of Louisiana, leaving behind a trail of speculation and intrigue. As the shadows of the Mexican-American War loomed large, John Joel Glanton found himself entrenched in the ranks of Walter P. Lane's esteemed San Antonio Company of Texas Rangers. However, his tenure within this distinguished outfit was not without controversy, as contemporary accounts recount an incident in which Glanton, serving as a perimeter sentry in 1847, allegedly took the life of a Mexican citizen in Magdalena, New Mexico. In his defense, Glanton maintained that the civilian had brazenly disregarded his commands to halt, sparking a confrontation that ultimately led to bloodshed. This contentious event set the stage for a clash between Walter P. Lane, then a major in the Army, and his superior, General Zachary Taylor. Despite efforts by military police to apprehend Glanton, he managed to slip through their grasp, subsequently enlisting in John Coffee Hayes' 2nd Regiment of the 1st Texas Mounted Rifles, affectionately dubbed the Texan Rangers. Glanton's exploits during the Mexico City campaign under the command of General Winfield Scott garnered him widespread acclaim for his remarkable valor and audacity. Noted by Joseph Lane for his unwavering resolve and intrepid conduct during the harrowing battles of November 23rd, 24th, 1847. At Guadalajara Pass in Puebla, Private Glanton etched his names into military lore. Following the cessation of hostilities, Glanton and his associates found themselves employed by Mexican authorities, tasked with the daunting mission of eradicating Apache incursions plaguing the northern reaches of Mexico and the burgeoning southwestern United States. Yet, driven by avarice and the pursuit of greater financial gain, their operations took a sinister turn as they resorted to scalping peaceful Mexican farmers and indigenous Americans, exploiting the bounties offered for their grisly trophies. Among Glanton's Confederates stood a Texan figure known only as Judge Holden, purportedly his second in command, as recounted by the soldier and memorist Samuel Chamberlain, who claimed membership within their ranks. However, their treacherous actions did not go unpunished, as the state of Chihuahua, incensed by their atrocities, issued a damning decree in December of 1849, branding them as outlaws and placing a hefty bounty on their heads. Driven from the confines of Chihuahua, Glanton and his cohorts sought refuge in Sonora, where they continued their nefarious pursuits. Yet their presence soon wore thin, compelling them to venture northward into the rugged expanses of the Arizona Territory. On May 23, 1850, Judge Abel Stearns, serving the District of Los Angeles, California, heard the testimony of a man named Jeremiah Hill. He, being duly sworn, testified and declared that he was among a group of 14 American settlers who had traversed the Colorado River subsequent to the tragic demise of John J. Glanton and his companions at the hands of the Yuma tribe. This is that story. Approximately 5 days prior to their arrival near the mouth of the Gila River, they encountered a Creek native named John Lewis. This individual, fluent in English, Spanish, and the Yuma dialect, had previously journeyed from Tucson alongside General Anderson of Tennessee. John Lewis presented them with a document issued by General Anderson to the Yuma tribe. This document stipulated that the tribe was permitted to utilize the boat constructed by General Anderson for the purpose of ferrying his party across the river. The agreement mandated the fee of $1 for each horse, $1 per person, and $1 for each pack or cargo. Furthermore, it declared that any deviation from these terms would result in the forfeiture of the boat. As per the deponent's understanding, this boat was utilized at the lower crossing, commonly referred to as the Algodones. The Creek native informed them that he, along with 3 other men, were upstream, following orders from Glanton to gather planks for constructing a raft to travel downstream and build another boat. He asserted his partnership with Glanton and claimed ownership of half of the aforementioned Yuma boat. According to the Creek, Glanton operated a ferry at the mouth of the Gila and possessed an ample supply of provisions. One member of the deponent's party, known as Anderson, who was an acquaintance of Glanton's, promptly set off to procure provisions and animals from Glanton. However, on the 23rd of April, at around 9 o'clock in the evening, he returned with unsettling news. He reported that based on the gestures of the Mexicans at the mouth of the Gila, whom he couldn't comprehend due to the language barrier, he suspected that Glanton's party had met a grim fate. He recounted how, as he neared the ferry, ambiguous signs were made toward him, prompting him to continue until he was eventually accosted by Mexican women. They dismounted him, stripped him of his attire, outfitted him in Mexican garments, and concealed him, actions which likely saved his life. This encounter occurred approximately 30 miles from the mouth of the Gila. The following day, the deponent's party traveled roughly 20 miles, encountering no natives, although some Mexicans claimed that the natives had trailed Anderson to within 5 miles of their camp from the previous day. The following day, their journey brought them within 600 yards of the deserted site of Glanton's former ferry, marked by a mound. At this juncture, the road diverged. One path leading directly to Glanton's defunct ferry, while the other veered left, stretching approximately 6 miles farther to the current ferry, controlled by the indigenous population. The brief halt revealed a complete absence of activity at Glanton's ferry. Neither boat nor dwelling remained on either shore. 3 Native Americans lingered nearby, but upon approach, they swiftly vanished into the underbrush. Continuing course toward the native ferry, they traversed a rugged path for 4 miles, wading through dense thickets of mesquite, young willow, and cottonwood. The trail, scarcely accommodating a single horse, coerced the packs to brush against the foliage for the majority of the journey. Having encamped roughly 10 miles beyond Glanton's former ferry, they remained stationed there throughout the entirety of the 25th. It was during the afternoon of this day, around 4 o'clock, that 10 unarmed Yumas approached the camp. Selecting one among them, they dispatched him to summon their chief, expressing their intent to engage in dialogue and bestow gifts. By nightfall, the chief arrived, and they presented him with shirts, handkerchiefs, jewelry, and other offerings before broaching the subject of Glanton's demise. According to the chief's testimony, General Anderson had left them a boat under the terms previously outlined. They pledged compliance with this agreement whenever American travelers sought passage. However, since Anderson's departure, numerous Mexicans had utilized their ferry, provoking Glanton's ire. The chief asserted that, aside from this, the natives have committed no transgressions against Glanton. Nevertheless, one fateful day, Glanton's men descended upon their boat, destroying it and forcibly taking an American who had been assisting them. This captive was brought to Glanton's camp, relieved of his money, and subsequently shot and disposed of in the river by Glanton himself. In response to this outrage, the chief ventured to Glanton's abode, proposing an amicable arrangement whereby Glanton would transport the men and their belongings, while the natives would handle the immigrants' livestock. However, Glanton rebuffed this proposition, resorting to physical violence by striking the chief with a stick and expelling him from the premises. The chief confessed to harboring thoughts of retaliation, but refrained due to the Americans' marksmanship. The altercation occurred prior to Glanton's departure for San Diego, purportedly to procure whiskey and provisions. Upon receiving news of Glanton's departure, the aggrieved chief convened a council among his people. It was unanimously resolved to exact vengeance upon the Americans lingering at the ferry. Another chief was dispatched to ascertain the Americans' position, discovering that Glanton had vacated for San Diego. Thus, they opted to bide their time until Glanton's return, as their primary objective, the chief attested, was to dispatch Glanton himself. Following the dispatch of the chief sent to ascertain Glanton's return, subsequent visits were made from day to day to the American encampment. Eventually, news arrived that Glanton indeed had made his way back. The chief ventured forth and discovered Glanton and his companions engaged in revelry imbibing, and dining. Hospitality was extended to the chief, who partook in libations and a meal. But as the afternoon waned, 5 of the Americans retired to a nearby hut for slumber, leaving the chief seated alone. Meanwhile, others among the Americans busied themselves with ferrying duties, stationed on the side of the riverbank. The chief vigilantly observed until he judged the 5 Americans to be sound asleep. Seizing the opportune moment, he stealthily made his way to his concealed tribespeople lurking in the bushes below the dwellings. Select members were dispatched to intercept the 3 Americans who were occupying cutting poles, instructed to disarm them. Simultaneously, on the opposite bank, natives infiltrated the ranks of both Americans and Mexicans, boarding the boat without raising suspicion. Taking position atop a small mound, offering a vantage point over his assembled warriors in the unfolding scenario, the chief awaited the signal. His directive was to beckon those who concealed in the underbrush to advance towards the American tents, entering them with a resounding battle cry as they dispatched the occupants. A distinct scarf signaled coordination to the natives across the river and those observing the 3 Americans above. At the chief's cue, bloodshed ensued, claiming the lives of those aboard the boat and at the dwellings. The natives dispatched to intercept the 3 Americans fled, while the pursued trio managed to escape by commandeering a small skiff and navigating downstream. Pursuit ensued from both shores, resulting in casualties among the pursuers and the pursued. The chief disclosed that at least 10 members of the tribe had fallen in the altercation. Furthermore, during Glanton's prior encounter with the chief regarding the ferry, he brazenly threatened to exact retribution by slaughtering 1 native for every Mexican they ferried across. Additionally, the chief provided a visual approximation of the spoils seized from the American camp, indicating 3 large sacks of silver, each measuring roughly 3 feet in height and 2 feet in diameter, believing to contain a collective sum of at least $80,000. That is a lot of money for the time period. Furthermore, a sack of gold, approximately 1 foot in height and diameter, was distributed among his people before the dwellings were set ablaze, engulfing the deceased in flames. The 6 unfortunate souls who met their demise aboard the boat were swiftly dispatched into the river upon being bludgeoned to death, their bodies succumbing to the merciless onslaught of clubs wielded by their assailants. Similarly, the 5 individuals on shore suffered a grim fate at the hands of these brutal weapons, with the exception of Glanton, whose life was extinguished by a hatchet, a chilling detail revealed by the chief himself. Their garments, along with the brush shed serving at the site of their execution, were consigned to the flames before their remains were unceremoniously cast into the river. Following this harrowing account, the assembled council deliberated on the prospect of future encounters with Americans, ultimately resolving to mete out a similar fate to anyone who dared to traverse the Yuma tribe's domain. The demise of John Joel Glanton and his notorious gang marked a pivotal turning point in the history of the Old West, unleashing a cascade of violence and chaos that reverberated throughout the region. Their bloody end served as the catalyst for the ill-fated Gila expedition and the brutal conflict known as the Yuma War, leaving a trail of devastation and suffering in their wake. However, Glanton's legacy extends far beyond the realm of history, permeating popular culture and literature with an enduring influence that continues to captivate audiences to this day. Nowhere is this more apparent than in Cormac McCarthy's seminal work, Blood Meridian, where Glanton's character and the exploits of his gang are immortalized in a haunting and visceral narrative that delves into the darkest depths of the human soul. Through his portrayal in literature, John Glanton stands as a testament to the enduring allure of the Old West, a feared figure of undeniable evil, whose legend and mythos continue to fall to the wayward texts of frontier history.